Despite the fact that the US economy is growing, millennials are on their way to be the first generation not to exceed their parents in terms of job status or income. In this video, we are going to explore how the actions of the boomer generation are affecting the millennials, and finally, how the economy will or will not benefit from the wealth transfer that is about to happen from the boomers to the millennials. According to recent Federal Reserve data from 2022, millennials collectively control about 6.6% of the total household wealth in the US, as opposed to baby boomers who control 50.4% of it, showing a very significant difference between the two generations. So, the two most important questions to be asked are, how is this possible? And what caused this? Differences between the two generations. The baby boomer generation, despite being born after the Second World War during very difficult times, has created a population boom, reaching the highest population growth rate level ever. According to classical economic theory, living in a large society with many people just like you will bring many disadvantages due to the fierce competition caused by the large supply of workers. But if so, how can we explain all the success that this generation has achieved? Lord David Willetts, a member of the House of Lords in the UK and a demographer, suggests that the opposite might be true. Due to the large number of people in this generation, boomers have more voting power on generational issues and more contractual power in marketplaces. Because of this, when they were young, they were able to vote on important issues and were able to achieve important results which significantly benefited them, such as free higher education, a family support system, and strong social welfare. Of course, as the boomer generation progressed, their voting preferences changed, targeting lower income taxes, less business regulations, and more. Currently, the boomers are approaching their retirement age, so their voting patterns are slowly shifting again to achieve an optimal retirement plan. On the other hand, the millennials only represent a small cohort compared to the baby boomers, so they are not able to contrast their voting decisions. This pattern has brought millennials to live in a period of optimal retirement plans, but less optimal higher education costs and weak social welfare. The main difference between the wealth creation of the two generations comes from two main aspects: higher education and the housing market. College education for baby boomers wasn't required to be eligible for most jobs, and on top of that, it was accessible with a low portion of their family income. For millennials instead, not only is it mandatory for most workplaces, but also it often requires, especially in the US, a student loan which will bear on the student's economic situation for many years in the future. This situation induces a natural economic slowdown as the students are not able anymore to purchase a house in their 20s and start a family of their own. The housing market, too, has become very averse toward the millennials generation, as in the 60s, an individual only had to spend 2 years' worth of salary to purchase a medium-sized house. Therefore, most boomers in their early 20s had a house and a family so that they were able to fully dedicate themselves to their professional career. Nowadays, a millennial in their 20s has to spend on average 5 times their yearly salary to be able to afford a medium-sized house, according to an optimistic statistic, as other more pessimistic studies show that a full-time minimum wage worker is not even able to afford rent in certain cities. This difference in the housing market and the soar of the house prices has induced several implications. First of all, studies show that nowadays the percentage of adults living with their parents is at the highest point since the Great Depression. Secondly, the increase in housing prices has reduced the geographical and social mobility, meaning that it is now harder to find a good job that suits your abilities and needs. In the majority of the cases, a potential job will imply a cost of commuting and/or a cost of moving and paying rent, which is too high to be even worth taking the job, therefore fueling unemployment and consequently slowing down the economy even more. Wealth transfer. So, up to this point, we have analyzed the differences between the two generations, which would seem to depict a lost battle for the millennials, but maybe a great wealth transfer will be able to kickstart a period of economic prosperity for the millennials. The theory of a successful wealth transfer is based on the concept that now the boomers are approaching the retirement age, so they will be leaving their assets and family businesses to their millennial heirs. Unfortunately, there are many flaws with this theory. Generally, the boomers' wealth is not in the form of money or other liquid assets, but it is rather in the form of small family businesses. This implies that the millennials must be both able and willing to operate a small family business, risking losing the entire patrimony in just a couple of years. If instead the boomer business owner decides to sell the entire business before retiring, very often the proceeds from the sale will be used for their retirement plan, rather than invested in the housing market or any other market able to spool the economy. This problem is known as the intergenerational wealth problem. This situation could be tackled by parents passing on wealth while they are still alive, as well as leaving cash, assets, and properties to family in their will. These kinds of actions will reduce or outright eliminate the cost of the first house or the student loan expense, so that the new generations will have more disposable income to spend on goods and services spooling up the economy. This process of early inheritance is fiercely reduced by high inheritance income taxes and real estate taxes, which would have to be reduced to increase this type of phenomenon. On the other hand, we must remember that to pass a new law or change an existing one in the Congress, we must have the approval of the majority of the voting population, which is composed primarily by the baby boomers, which are currently more concerned about their retirement account. This situation represents an actual problem in our society, as it is very hard to escape from and could be leading us towards a very significant period of economic slowdown marked by the end of the boomer generation. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and let us know in a comment below. What do you think about the situation, and how are you working towards a solution for yourself?